Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me. On this episode, I was grateful to welcome back Christine Hernandez. Christine is, among many other things, the Director of Business Development for TEC. And we thought it was timely to have a discussion around what relationships can do for our growth. At this time of year, we are goal setting, we're planning, we're visualizing, we're thinking about who we want to be, what we want to accomplish, what did or didn't happen in this previous year, and how that's added up to equal where we're at now. And as high performers, as people that are goal oriented, whether you're coming at that from an athletic position, whether you're coming at that from an entrepreneurial space, career driven, wherever you're at in your life, if you are someone who is setting big goals and wants to accomplish more, it is very, very easy to fall back on the mindset that it's all up to us and that we don't need people or that we're going to accomplish more by ourselves. And so I handed the mic over to Christine and let her guide us through some questions where she interviewed me, and I was able to walk through my experiences on both sides of the equation. One experience is, for many, many years, I kept my head down and I stayed in a silo and I tried to do it all myself and be the smartest person in the room and have the one with all the answers. And on the other side of the equation, I am someone now who is deeply committed to building up others around me, inviting others in, recognizing that I can do more with people and together than I can apart. And to the extent that I've built businesses around it. TEC and our Growth Circle Accelerator is for that reason. It's because I know that we can do more together, and that when we invite others in and we commit to a community and we invest in that, what we see on the other side of that is exponentially better than what it looks like and the results that we get when we are siloed and cut off and put our head down and try to be the one with all the answers and the smartest person in the room. And so what I'm committed to now is really making sure that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I got to find a different room. And that's a mantra that I live by. And I want to invite you to listen to this episode with a critical ear. Think about how you're coming into the new year. How are you setting goals? Are you setting goals from a place of being in a silo, trying to figure out all the answers, trying to push through, trying to see if what you have in the works is going to actually produce the results that you're looking for? Or are you looking for opportunities for growth through the lens of relationships, community, mentorship, guidance? Are you connecting with people who have been where you want to go and have done the things you want to accomplish so that you can flatten the learning curve? And so it was an amazing experience. I'm so rarely on the other side of the mic, so to speak, and I'm grateful for Christine's willingness to do this. She is instrumental in what we do at TEC, and I'm lucky to call her a friend, a business partner, a coworker. And she's someone that I have immense respect for and trust, and am so grateful that she was able to come back on Endurance Minded and provide a different perspective. And so, again, I want to invite you to sit with this one, think critically about it. I hope that my story resonates with you, that you can find some connection in it and through it. And I worked to really be honest and vulnerable as I answered Christine's questions and as we talked through my experiences and what this has actually looked and felt like for me. I did that in hopes that it flattens the learning curve for you, that you don't have to put up with the frustrations and the roadblocks and the loneliness that I did for so long. So thanks as always. This is a special episode. I appreciate you listening. And I hope you enjoy my conversation as I was interviewed with Christine Hernandez, the Director of Business Development for TEC. All right. Welcome back to Endurance Minded. We're going to be talking about how relationships support growth. And I thought there was no better person to invite into this conversation than Christine Hernandez. Hey, Christine, how's it going?
Good. I'm so excited about this. It's been a minute since I've been on Endurance Minded.
I know. Yeah, we've done a lot of other things together, but you haven't been back on Endurance Minded. We have our own podcast, Impact Minded, that we do every week. Shameless plug, I guess, for that. But yeah, I'm excited to have you back on. You are very involved as the Director of Business Development in TEC. And we want to talk about, like I said, how growth is supported by relationships. And I think I know that it is very easy to get comfortable and to make decisions about the people that we let into our lives and the people that we surround ourselves with based on what keeps us most comfortable. And that's really the antithesis of our relationship. And because it is one purely based on support from a place of growth, not purely, but largely, you and I are both very committed to making sure that one another are always taking full advantage or kind of moving in the direction of our full potential. And I think specific to endurance sports and to coaching and to health and wellness and the space that we are talking about, and in business for sure, with Endurance Minded, we get lured into a false sense of complacency. We surround ourselves with people that tell us, you're doing a good job, buddy. Like, great work, and I think it requires more than that. I think that there should be people in our lives that tell us when we're not doing enough and aren't afraid to do that because they care about us and know that we're capable of more. And so they care enough to push us in that direction. And so I'm going to pass it over to you because I'm going to let you, in the spirit of supportive relationships, I'm going to let you take the reins for a bit and steer the conversation so that we can suss out what supportive relationships look like through the lens of growth. And yeah, I'm excited to dive into this one. I think it's something for me has been probably the biggest shift in how I really just see the world, probably in the last, certainly the last decade, but really in the last probably 5 years. And it's steered a lot of the decisions I've made and kind of how I show up in the world and businesses I've built. And so I'm excited to dive in, but I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Well, this is a conversation that I feel like specific to the coaching industry or even the endurance or athletic industry, I think is so important because I see a core lie in these circles more than I do probably anywhere else. Like if you're a high achiever, you're a high driver, you want to achieve great things, or specifically you are a coach of any type, I would say that we struggle with asking for help or being supported more than anyone because we tell ourselves we have to have it all together. And I think that is the biggest lie that I have learned just working together, honestly, is that like we don't have to have it all together. As high achievers, as leaders, as athletes, we need support. I mean, how many times have we seen the people doing the races with zero team, with zero support? And coaches, we're just really bad at asking for help. We're really bad at inviting people in. We want people to pay us as coaches, but are we actually investing in a coach ourselves? Whether that's athletically or in business, are we investing, whether that's time or finances, in the support that we need? as high drivers. And I think that's something that I didn't do enough of. And I know that you would probably agree. Like, you probably looking back could say, oh my gosh, I should have invested sooner in important relationships. I should have been more intentional and not tried to do it by myself. Would you agree?
Totally. Yeah, no, I certainly was guilty of that, wearing that kind of badge of honor or perceived badge of honor that, I could do it on myself, or if I just kept working hard enough, or, it meant that I wasn't good enough if I asked for help, like if somehow I didn't have all the answers, and that diminished my value and how competent and capable I was. So yeah, absolutely. And only to find out that I was very, very wrong, and it ultimately cost me the things that I said that I wanted most, right? It took me a hell of a lot longer to get there than it should have if I would have just looked for support. So for sure.
Yeah, we meet with coaches and athletes every single day that are like, I'm going to try to figure it out by myself. And then if I can't figure it out, then I'll join into, then I'll invest in a coach, or then I'll join the growth circle that we offer for coaches at TEC and health professionals. I think that's the number one thing that stops us. And so today I want to speak to the value of having the right relationships in our corner, because that is one of the biggest differentiators of people who are highly successful and people who fall flat and don't finish. So if you're someone who has fallen flat, and maybe you're someone who also has said, I got it, I'll let you know when I need help, and then you never actually pick that up, this one is definitely for you. So I want to just start by giving you the floor a little bit, Taylor. I want to understand how I've been involved in TEC for, I think it's been almost 6 years now. But I want to hear why did you start? Or even why did you start hiring coaches? Why not just do it alone? What was that defining moment that you were like, actually, I'm just done doing it alone?
It's a good question. It's a bit of a winding road. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that I have always been, even if I wasn't particularly cognizant of it, I know now that I have always been really committed to making an impact in people's lives over and above myself. Mm-hmm. And that's partly why I started coaching, is I recognized the value that the pursuit of my full potential and my goals on the athletic side brought to my life, and I wanted to facilitate the opportunity for others to have that same experience. It still continues to positively inform all areas of my life when I consistently engage in the physical side of, athletic preparation, and no matter what the discipline is. And so that's where it started. And then from the coaching side of things, it came from impact, and it came from an impact on the client side and the athlete side, where I was like, okay, well, I only have X amount of hours in the day, and I don't want my impact to stop with my ability to connect with athletes, to make a positive impact on these people's lives. And so I can extend my bandwidth by empowering others to make a similar impact, now in their own way, in their own style, with their own clients and athletes and personalities that they like to work with. And I think that's the other thing is, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I think that's the great thing about coaching, is that it is very, very individualized and personality specific, right? You are bringing on someone who is in your corner and who is invested heavily in your success. And that connection is over and above and far exceeds like the training plan part of things, right? I always say like the training plan is the last piece of the puzzle once we've made a connection and built a real relationship with our clients. That's kind of the final expression of what we know about that individual and how we can kind of service them. So bringing on coaches was part of extending that impact. And then ultimately that's led me to where I'm at now and the kind of evolution of TEC with the Growth Circle, which is our accelerator program that is a part of TEC. We still are very invested and committed to helping athletes, specifically by aggregating and pulling together a community of coaches that is supported and has the best of the best and all of the resources they need to show up and be fully present and prepared for their clients. And so they can provide the best level of service for the athletes. But the Growth Circle on our accelerator side was just an extension to me that seemed obvious from that impact kind of position, which was for the coaches that want to grow their business and want to have autonomy. I knew that from all of the lessons I've learned in this space, that I was in a unique position to help these individuals kind of flatten the learning curve, grow and scale, think about things differently, provide mentorship, provide support, provide very real resources and tools and kind of actionable takeaways that they can implement into their business so that they can do the thing that they want to do. And they can do it well and they can be successful at it. Because I had also really truthfully gotten sick and tired of hearing coaches. And I mean that in kind of the most sincere way, is that I had gotten sick and tired, and I continue to be sick and tired of coaches not being able to make a living doing something that they're passionate about. I mean, this is one of the most passionate group of people that I've ever met. And, you and I work with people all over the world in lots of different verticals and industries, and like coaches always, it is like bar none, no one cares as much about what they're doing, right? It is like purely a passion driven endeavor. Otherwise, why would you do it? But I think that's the problem that I want to solve, or the narrative shift that I want to tweak, is like, you want to do it because it is passion driven, and you also want to do it because it is a lucrative endeavor that can support a life that you're proud of and that you're excited about, and that affords you all of the opportunities that any other career, or if someone invested that much of themselves into it, they would be compensated, right? Mm-hmm. They would be compensated with recognition, with revenue, with clients that see their value, right? They would be compensated with all of the aspects that a high performing career should have. And that's what I want to give to the coaching industry. That's what I want coaches to have, is that level of recognition. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's impact, but I think I come back to that as like my cornerstone or my North Star, and continue to try to build from there.
Yeah. And coaching, we've done, the research shows that we get such a high level of impact, sustainable impact, when we invest in a coach. And yet it is one of the industries that's highly undervalued financially. And so I remember you and I years ago, that's where the education for the Growth Circle came, was like you and I just sitting and honestly complaining, like pissed off about the industry and like how, and the narrative that's within it, that like we can't. And I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about, is the education or the knowledge transfer. Like when we think about legacy, for leaders specifically, or coaches, like it doesn't matter the industry. When we think about legacy and we think about, everybody's like, oh, I want to pass an inheritance. Everybody talks about passing money, but nobody really talks about the wisdom and the knowledge that they're passing. And I think that is the core of relationship, the value of relationship. And I remember when my grandma passed, the saddest moment was when I realized that like I didn't ask her about all the stories I wish I would have. Like I was going through some of her stuff and I just realized that there was like true wisdom that she didn't pass to me. And like, I will never be able to go back and actually get that. But if we flip that equation and we're like, okay, if I was just to pass all of the wisdom and knowledge that I have to 3 people, and then those people were to pass that same knowledge and wisdom to the next 3 people, and all we're talking about is like, when we pass that, we're just in relationship with someone. And that's the core of where the growth circle came from. It's like, we know how to do this. You and I know how to get the clients. We know how to do the things. And like, there's a whole sea of people, whole community of people out there in the coaching industry specifically that just don't know how to do it. What if we were to just build relationship with those people and pass that knowledge? And I think that's the core of what leadership and relationship is about, is just this desire to pass that wisdom and knowledge. So I want you to speak to that. Like, what are the things that you feel like, and you're going to hate this question because you actually are a very humble person. What are the things that you feel like you want to pass to, like, whether it's the next generation or like coaches, athletes, like, what are the pieces of wisdom that you're like, I just can't not share this because it's too important? What is that legacy for you, Taylor?
I think the first thing I'll say is, with leadership in general, no matter where you're coming at it from, if you're an athlete and you're trying to figure, let me preface that by saying that I think we are all leaders in some capacity, right? If you're just an athlete trying to show up in your own life and trying to make time for yourself, like, you're in a leadership position. If you're a business owner, if you're, in a more kind of classic leadership role in an executive space, we are all leaders. We do not get to, we're not absolved of that. You are leading both yourself and other people. And I think the first thing I'll say is that it is not, there's no reason that we should be good at that, right? There's no reason that is an inherent knowledge base that we just bring to the table. And I don't think that we say that enough, or that we recognize that. And to put a finer point on it, if we take something like coaching, and we have this passion, and we have even this knowledge, and we have this desire to help other people accomplish their goals, or be better, or, be healthier, or feel more confident, there's really no reason that we inherently know how to bridge the gap between that passion and the execution required to make that successful, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's leadership. And that requires a different skill. It requires a different type of support. It requires different conversations. And I think that we look for those answers in truthfully, I think we look for them in the wrong places. Mm. Where we say, okay, well, I'm going to go, there's so many examples of this, but I'll speak specifically to coaching because it's pervasive and prevalent. We say, well, I'm going to go get another certification, or I'm going to go to some like governing body. I'm going to get this thing. And I am all for continuing ed. And I think that having information is good. That is actually not the thing that you need. It's not solving your problem. It's not building that bridge, right? And you don't need another piece of information that allows you to talk at your clients, right? What you need is leadership skills that allow you to connect in a meaningful way to the people that you're trying to make an impact with and for in their lives. And that is an inherently different skill that has to be, you have to seek that out. And you have to seek it out in the same way that you're trying to amass your certifications. Right. And again, this applies, wherever you're at in the world, there's a version of this, right? If you're an athlete, it's, you don't need another piece of data or another piece of equipment, right? You need support. You need access to people that have done it before. You need to have real conversations that help you bridge the gap between where you're at and the execution required to get to your goals. And that's not the newest, best, latest watch. That's not another bike. That's not another pair of running shoes. Those things are cool. I like them too. But like, we have to recognize what's actually required to get us where we want to go. And it's not the things that we're looking for. It's the answers aren't in the places where we're trying to find them. And I to your question, I mean, I think that's really what I want to convey is that we have to reframe how we think about success. And what success truly looks like is being able to recognize that it is good and okay to surround yourself with people that have done it before and that are going to push back and are going to tell you, you're not doing this right. This is not the way to get there. Or think about this another way. Or, like, we need people that are going to highlight where there's opportunities for growth. And then we need to be willing to step into that. We don't need to take offense to that. We need to say, oh, thank you. Like, that's a gift. And I think we need to recognize, and again, what I want to leave behind is that when we surround ourselves with people that are also impact driven and are really there to support us, it creates opportunities over and above what we could ever have imagined when we were just alone. And, that's in every space. Like, go out and train on your own, or get a couple of friends that are like really supportive and fired up, and like watch how different your fitness is. Like, get a training buddy and watch what happens versus doing it alone. Get a business mentor, watch what happens. Find a group of people, and just, it's not rocket science. Like, but there is a recognition there, and there's an acceptance that's required to say that I don't have to know it all. And it's actually better for me if I just go out in the world and I recognize the information that I need. I know my knowledge gaps. I'm clear on what it takes to reach my goals. Where I'm trying to find the answers is not actually the place that's going to yield the results. Where I'm trying to find the answers is probably based on me wanting to stay comfortable and actually not want to be pushed, and it's safe, versus actually seeking out growth. And so I'm going to recognize that I'm making decisions from a place of scarcity and comfort versus a place of growth and opportunity. And when I get clear on that, I'm going to find very different people. I'm going to be in very different rooms, and I'm going to be able to do things that I never thought were possible. But I'm going to have to kind of get over my own bullshit, and I'm going to have to make sure that I'm paying attention and I'm asking the right questions. And it's communities of people that are genuinely committed to your growth and your success, not communities that are committed to keeping you safe and happy and giving you the answers that you want.
That's so good. I was thinking about this the other day. I think that we stay in relationships, like, to your point, we stay in relationships that don't serve us or don't support us in reaching our goals. And I'm like, if you're not getting fruit from a relationship or something that you're doing, if you don't actually get a result from it, then it's time to quit. It's time to like move on to something bigger. And I think a lot of times we just stay in those same circles and we expect to get a different result. We do the same thing over and over again, expecting to get a different result, but it doesn't come because we're not actually stretching ourselves, right? So if there's not a result that you're getting a true result towards growth, then it's probably time to leave and shift it up. So I love that point. It's interesting. I want to go back to something you said. You're someone who your first company was a tech company, and TEC is highly like centered around technology. It's something that you value a lot, but you do harp on it's not the next piece of technology. It's not the next piece of equipment. How do you balance those things? Because you always, if it's technology or relationship, you always choose relationship. I've watched you do that over and over and over. Why is that? Like, what has gotten you to the place where you don't just gravitate towards leveraging technology first, but you actually gravitate towards leveraging relationship first and allowing technology to support that, because you're really good at that. And it always surprises me because you also have a love for efficiency and technology, but you're never the person who's like robotic about it. Like there's those people who just wish they could do life with robots. You're not one of those. You're like, yes, technology, but first relationship. And it's something that is probably one of the core reasons I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. Like you were like, you want to work with us? Like I remember having that conversation, like, you're like the best leader I know. Yes. Like it would be an honor to be on the TEC team. And that's one of the core pieces, because you know how to leverage technology because of relationship, not instead of relationship. And I think right now that is such a core need for most leaders. And I feel like it's a balancing act, but you do that so well. So break that down, how you've done that within your own life, your own business, and like, how have you managed that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first piece is, you said it. It's you have to leverage it, in conjunction with relationship. And I think there's a lot of ways to frame this specific conversation. I think people are gonna inevitably and naturally, given the kind of current climate, are gonna go to AI, which is fair. And I think I see technology, and I've long seen technology. Like you said, I mean, my first company in my very early 20s was a software company, and here we are 2 decades later, and technology continues to be at the forefront of how I think about business. In terms of how do we build things that are in alignment with client expectations? How do we make sure that we're paying attention? The fact of the matter is that technology then and at this point is it's fully integrated into our lives. And so there's one very real part of me that is like, you have to pay attention. You can't just opt out. So for these people that are like, oh, I'm not doing that, or I'm not, well, then you got to suffer the consequences. Truthfully, like we're not at the stage where you get to opt out. Now, certainly you could decide where you want to engage. And I want to emphasize that I think that certainly showing up in a way that you find valuable and that you can be authentic in however that manifests in kind of the technology sector is important. So I'm not saying it should be like a scatter shot and you should be everywhere, but you don't get to opt out. Not at this stage of the game. We're too deep. But I also think there's the other side of the coin, like you said, where they're because it is so integrated, and it does make things efficient. I think that we need to pay very close attention to how we think about the value that we bring as humans, and I said this earlier, specific to the coaching industry, what we do best is build relationships with people. And that's what we do best. And that's what we do first. And only after we've done that really well do we get to provide the prescriptive component of our coaching practice. So if that's a training plan, if that's specific guidance, if that's it really could be in any sector of coaching that we're talking about. You don't lead with the training plan, right? So I've really, like, a core tenet for me is I've always thought about, I come back to, what does it look like to start to work with a new client? And what that process is typically is someone's interested and I get on the phone with them. Now, there's lots of ways that you can sell your services, and there's automations and all these things, but let's just talk at like a baseline. Generally, I'm going to get on the phone with them. Well, what do they see first? Me. What do they hear first? Me. What do they connect with first? Me. the language I use, my ability to listen, my ability to ask good questions, my ability to communicate effectively, my ability to respond and connect with them based on my previous experiences and the things that I know. And only after I've done that really well do I get to deliver a training plan, right? So we don't lead with the training plan. And I think that kind of is like my mantra for technology, is like, as well as good as it can help us, and as efficient as it makes us, and as important as it is, and it is important, we still have to lead with us. We have to lead with connection and relationships, and then we layer in technology to streamline that. There are certainly things that we can make more efficient, and that's something that we talk about a lot, and that's why TC continues to have a very strong technology arm, is because it allows coaches, or I believe in the ability to develop tools for coaches that allows them to streamline the things that bog them down, so that they can spend more time building relationships and communicating effectively. That's the piece, right? Like, technology, to the extent that it allows us to do the things that we do even better and at scale, so that we can make a bigger impact. The moment that flips and we lose sight of why technology is important and why it's important to make things more efficient and why we'd want to streamline things, if you're streamlining things so that you can remove yourself, I think you're going to be in trouble, right? And that's actually why I think AI is incredible, because it's at the stage we're at right now, it is not better at building relationships and communicating with clients. It's not better at listening. It's only as good as the prompt that you put in. So can we use it to streamline things? Can we use it to build in efficiencies in our businesses? Absolutely, but do that to the extent that it allows you to spend more time on the things that we still do best, which is listen and communicate genuinely from a place of listening, right? And when you do that, that's a piece that cannot be replaced at the moment. And I think, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think if we continue to pay attention to that, there will always be a place for coaches that are ready to listen and are ready to be, in someone's corner, right? Mm-hmm. Like, robots aren't going to do that. Robot, they can talk like that, but they're never going to truly give a shit about you, like coaches do, right? And so I think there's, that for me is the balance. Like, we have to make sure that technology supports the thing that we do best, and as long as we keep that at the forefront, we can continue to develop technology that supports us and what we do, and it won't diminish the service we provide. It won't diminish that passion that we bring. And I think people they're scared about that, but I think when done well, it's actually the opposite. It actually allows us to do more of what we do best versus AI taking our coaching jobs, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah. Or, like, if the industry is going to look different, or most industries will look different, but I don't think that as long as you're innovating and using it to expand your value, not replace your value, I think we'll actually have a lot of fun with it and get to maximize our impact. Like you're saying, what is one of the things that you wish you would have known in like your early days of your career, which was also when you were driving the hardest as an athlete? That's when you were pro, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's one of the things that you wish you would have known about relationship, or one of the ways that you would have changed how you interacted with relationships if you could go back?
It's probably a really long list. I've thought about this a lot, always as I've continued to reflect. And Certainly mentorship. I mean, that's the biggest one, right? Like I for far too long put far too much emphasis on my, it's not even my ability because I didn't do it well. My want and my desire to do it alone because I had told myself that that was the better way. And truthfully, like I mean, there was a ton of ego wrapped up in that. Um, my narrative was that like that was the stronger, better, cooler, sexier way to get what I wanted. Is if I could get to it and look back and tell everyone around me that I did it by myself. Right now, I had this. Is the crazy thing is like I had coaches on the athletic side. So I'll preface it with saying like that always was very clear to me, and that's really what got me into or led to me being a coach in that space. I'm specifically talking about for the other goals that I had, specifically my career goals. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I just wish that I would have found someone to ask questions for support. I just for literally far too long through multiple businesses, that was my narrative, was that when I get to the end, I want to be able to say that I did this on my own. And my narrative was that was going to feel better, and that was good, and that meant that it was worthwhile, and that meant and I told myself that it meant something about me, that it meant that I was smart enough and could put up with put up with it for longer. Like I could endure more. There was like a grit piece that I needed to I thought that I needed to prove to myself that I could put up with it for longer than most people. And honestly, like, unfortunately I did. Like I did. That's not a win. Like, I mean, I could have done so much more, so much faster, with so much more enjoyment had I found a support network, had I had mentorship, had I had a community, had I gotten rid of that narrative and just done it with other people. Ask questions. And it's wild to me. I mean, even saying that out loud, because I'm like, man, my mantra now, and this, like, I'm like, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, right? Like, I am actively trying to not be that person, like that. And that really was what it was. I was like, oh, I got to be the smartest person in the room, because I'm the one that has to do it all. I'm the one that has to have all the answers. I'm the one. And this was even like I had teams of people with other businesses who had, investors, and I just refused to not be the one steering the ship and not be the one with all the ideas, and to try to be the smartest person in the room. I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I just wasn't asking for input. Right. And I think that's a key piece too, is like we tell ourselves that like we don't have access to that, or like you do. It's everywhere. You just got to be willing to ask. You got to just take a half a step back and open your eyes and be like, oh man, if I'm willing to take criticism, if I'm willing to recognize my weaknesses and ask the right questions, there are people around me. Because that was also part of my narrative, is no one wants to help me. There's no one here. There's no one, yeah, that'd be great, but who? Well, now I look back, I'm like, Jesus, they're everywhere. Right. Like, but I wasn't willing to change that narrative, and I wasn't willing to back off of my ego. And yeah, I mean, the cost was high, like very, very high for a long time. And while I think I know that entrepreneurship in particular does have a very high cost, it didn't it didn't have to be as high as it was. And I could have allocated those resources. I'm not talking about financial cost. I'm talking about the cost of, in our lives, of the effort required. I could have allocated that in other places that would have yielded much higher results. Like, I know for a fact that I would have been wildly more successful if I had gotten out of my own way a hell of a lot sooner. Even though on the outside, like, I gotta just know it would have been, I'm like, yeah, the business did X, Y, and Z, or exited this business, but like, it would have been totally different. Like, I know that for a fact. And that's something that's hard. That's like a pill that's hard to swallow for me, but I will admit that, like, I'd be in a different place right now had I started getting out of my own way a lot sooner and just asking for help and being around people that are willing and able to take me where I want to go.
What was like the shift in that? Like, how did you go from there? Because I don't know that, Taylor. Like, that was BC, before Christine. But
what a dark time it was.
Yeah. How did you? Because it's so crazy because you do say things like that, and one of the things that I respect most about you is that you're not intimidated to not be the smartest person in the room. Like, as a leader, and I don't see you, I struggle with this a little bit, but I don't see you struggle with this, or you do, like, gracefully or something. It's like, it can be intimidating to be leading a company or leading something and then have people asking you questions that you don't know and your team knows. You're like, I don't know, let me ask your team. Like, there is a moment, there's like a liminal space between like ego and humility where you're like, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to mean that I'm not smart. It actually just means I'm smart enough to put the people in the right positions. I'm smart enough to hire the coach. I'm smart enough to, like, hire people or put people around me who know more than me. And, like, instead of just constantly, like, I'll do it on my own. So how did you go from that? Like, what was the defining moment that shifted that for you? Because I think there's a lot of people that are like, yes. And we get into the trenches and we're like, it's kind of uncomfortable. Like, it doesn't feel sexy to be dumb. Like, it doesn't, we say these things. And yeah, like, I sometimes will hate that moment that you're like, I don't know. I actually don't know. And it seems unacceptable for drivers to say, I don't know. Like, that's one of the things that we said when we started the Growth Circle was we just want to create a space where people get to come and say, I don't know. And be able to have other people who do know and, like, support that. And same with coaches, right? Like, it's a space, if you hire a coach or you have a mentor, it's a space where you get to say, I don't know. So how did you find yourself? What was that path like, Taylor? Because it's not easy.
Part of it was just exhaustion. I honestly, I think that I love the equation that, we only change when the friction of where we're at overrides the friction required to make a different decision. Right? So we will never do anything unless where we're at becomes so painful that we literally can't afford not to make another decision. Until that inflection point, there's no change. I don't care what it is. If you're hungry, you won't go eat lunch until the discomfort of not eating becomes so much that you'll then go make a different decision, right? Like, it can be a very simple things like that, and it can be at very life-changing, pivotal moments. And so that really is what it was, is that the friction of where I was at became so high that the pain of making a different decision was actually easier. I was experiencing more friction and more pain and more discomfort being where I was at, doing it alone, hanging on to that narrative, trying to be the smartest person in the room or pretending to be the smartest person in the room, um, than asking for help, right? Because like you said, there is friction there. It is there that point when you say, hey, I don't know, I need help. How have you done this? What does this look like? How do I do it? Where do I go? What's the tool? What's the right? Like the list is long. When you open up that door, there's going to be a lot that you don't know. It's going to be, I don't know how to use this piece of technology. I've never heard of that. What's the process? You're going to quickly find out that it actually is a deeper well than you've imagined. You're going to think that you don't know a couple things. What you really don't know is like an entire vertical or industry or arm of the business that you're trying to build. You have no clue, because you've been siloed. Again, because you've made choices that have kept you safe. They've strengthened the things you're already good at, and you've avoided and turned your back on the weaknesses. And so, yeah, there is very real friction there. And there's discomfort. When that discomfort is less uncomfortable than where you're at right now, you'll make a change. And until then, you're not going to. I can say it all day long. I could be like, please, for the love of God, learn from my mistakes. Learn from my 15 years of what I think was doing it wrong, right? Of my stifled success and the list of people that I didn't build relationships with that I regret now, and all of the lost time and energy and sleep and relationships and trips I didn't take with my family. And like, please, for the love of God, do it. But until you feel like, again, that friction is less than the pain required to switch, you're not going to make a decision. And that's super frustrating for me, right? Like, that's the piece that I wish I could change. But that's the human condition. We're not. So my goal, my hope is that I can help people recognize the pain and the frustration and the discomfort that they're in. So one, call attention to that, and also flatten the learning curve and flatten the pain required to make the transition. That's largely what our accelerator program, the Growth Circle at TEC, is it is a comfortable way. It is an easy transition into saying, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Right. And that's great. Like, thank you. If that's an easier transition, you will make that change faster. You won't wait a decade and a half like I did. You will do it sooner rather than later, and you will be wildly successful for it. In all of the ways, not just financial. But that's my hope, is that I can help people see both of those sides and see that transition into the discomfort of not knowing the answer is less painful than where they're at, and actually break down those barriers and to be less scary and less anxiety ridden than we think it is, or than it typically is, so that they can get access to that community, those support, those resources, those things, those doors that they've closed or kept closed purposefully because they've sided with comfort. And instead, I want people to lean into growth, but from a place of support, not growth and getting your ass beat.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what you said at the beginning of that, of like, it was from pure exhaustion. Like, I think that it excites me, and thanks for getting so exhausted that you were willing to make a change. But because you were willing to just run yourself to that place where you were willing to get to the place where you're like, I have to do something else because this is not working. And you literally didn't have the capability to like keep going. Like, endurance actually stopped. You like couldn't keep going. You were so tired that you lost your ability to continue, and you had to make a change, we get to see an impact in the coaching industry and the athletic industry because you burned yourself out. Like essentially, like sometimes our greatest wins or our greatest impact lie right underneath lie right underneath where we're like too tired to keep going. And so I think that that's like the perfect place to stop, because we get to step into helping the industry through elevating and supporting coaches, and therefore athletes actually get a better results because the coaches are supported. And I think that that's like the core of what you found. So I'm so excited to be on the journey with you. Thanks for letting me interview you this time. Any closing thoughts before we wrap?
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the support piece, and certainly, yeah, your insight in this space is a classic example of it. Again, like I don't know all the things, and you're able to bring a different mindset and different answers and a different approach, and I think that's something I'm grateful for. And I think the more, again, that we can invite people in and be okay with them providing new perspectives, the faster we'll get to our goals, and the more we'll enjoy the process, and the less lonely it'll feel. Because I think that's the other piece, is that the path to our full potential is often pretty lonely. We don't get to take a lot of people with us. And so I think inviting the right people in, having people that are strategic cheerleaders and there for mutual support is a really big win, because it's not something that is, it's not going to be hundreds of people. It's going to be a few people, and that's great. Like if we can have a few people that are in our quarter, that's a win. But en route to building the thing that we want, in being the person we want to be, reaching our full potential, not everyone's going to come. And so I think if I can, again, my commitment is to provide access to those people that are supportive, so that we can identify who those people are and have them on our journey with us early and often. And so we don't have to sit in ambiguity for too long. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And this has been fun. Glad to be on the other side of the mic. I don't usually get this opportunity. So I appreciate it.
Well, you're talented at both sides, interviewing and being interviewed. So thanks for having me. And I'll see you guys next time.